Unbelievable. Brace yourself, when fate brings despair to a forgotten stray, hope is born amidst chaos. Subscribe, hit like, and share your thoughts. This raw, heart-wrenching rescue will pull you deep into an unfiltered journey from the edge of oblivion to an overwhelming revival of spirit. In a city where every corner teeters on the brink of neglect and every shadow hides a story of silent suffering, an unexpected beacon of hope emerged one cold, rain-soaked evening. The narrow back streets, slick with recent downpour and lit only by flickering street lamps, became the stage for a moment that would irrevocably alter lives. In one such forsaken alley, where crumbling brick walls whispered secrets of a forgotten era, a gaunt and trembling canine lay shivering in the wet, grimy gutter. Its fur was matted and its eyes, glazed with pain and exhaustion, pleaded for mercy without uttering a single sound. The stray's plight was impossible to ignore. Passing by on his routine walk home, Daniel, a soft-spoken, unassuming night shift worker known for his gentle manner and unwavering compassion, stumbled upon the forlorn animal. His heart pounded like a distant drumbeat as he crouched down, careful not to startle the fragile creature. The dog's chest heaved weakly with shallow breaths, and in that frozen second, time itself seemed to pause as Daniel recognized the unmistakable signs of a creature clinging to life by a thread. Without hesitation, Daniel wrapped the quivering animal in his worn jacket, murmuring soothing words that mingled with the patter of rain. The atmosphere was charged with a desperate urgency. As Daniel cradled the fragile animal, his mind raced with questions. How had this loyal soul come to be abandoned amid urban decay? What shadows had it escaped, and what horrors had it witnessed in the unseen corners of the city? With a gentle determination, he resolved to give the creature the chance it deserved, a chance to taste the hope and comfort that life could yet offer. Daniel's first stop was a humble, yet warmly lit, veterinary clinic nestled on a quiet side street. The clinic, a modest establishment with peeling paint on its windows and a steadfast sign proclaiming Caring Hearts Veterinary Clinic, was known to many in the neighborhood as a sanctuary for the suffering. Dr. Elena Morales, a seasoned veterinarian with kind eyes and a voice that could soothe even the most anxious soul, greeted them at the door. Immediately, Dr. Morales detected the severity of the situation. The dog's energy was barely perceptible, its body trembling as if it bore the burden of unspoken tragedies. Without wasting a moment, the two of them rushed the animal into the treatment room, where the sterile scent of antiseptic mingled with the understated hum of hopeful determination. Within the whitewashed walls of the clinic, every tool and instrument carried the promise of a better tomorrow. As Dr. Morales and her dedicated team attended to the stray, they uncovered subtle signs of past injuries and long-standing neglect. There were small, faded scars etched across its sides and shreds of fur that told a story of constant battles against the cruelty of fate. Yet, amid the quiet distress, there was an undeniable glimmer of resilience, a silent resolve to survive despite the odds. In that critical hour, as the clinic's fluorescent lights cast long shadows across the treatment table, the dog's eyes opened with a quiet spark of recognition. It was as though, in the depths of pain, the canine's soul whispered a silent plea, "I still believe in kindness." Daniel and Dr. Morales exchanged a look filled with an unspoken understanding. This rescue was not merely about administering medicine and mending flesh, it was a testament to the healing power of compassion and the unyielding will to continue even when the world seems intent on leaving you behind. After what felt like an eternity laced with moments of suspended hope and quiet prayers, the first signs of recovery began to emerge. The dog, dubbed Lucky by Daniel, in recognition of the fragile fortune that had brought them together, responded to every gentle pat and soft word. It was a small victory, a twitch of the tail here, a softening of the once feared eyes there. In the intimate cocoon of the veterinary clinic, beneath the sterile hum of machines that monitored every heartbeat, hope began to crescendo into a chorus of quiet affirmations. Yet, as the night gave way to the first hints of dawn, a subtle undercurrent of unease drifted into the quiet corners of the city. Outside, far removed from the immediate circle of care, a series of unforeseen events unfolded like ripples in still water. In a modest neighborhood cafe not far from the clinic, a place where the locals often gathered to share stories and a few shy smiles, rumors of unexplained and unsettling occurrences began to circulate. There were whispers of odd happenings in the vicinity of the shelter, of strange figures observed lingering near dimly lit doorways at unexpected hours. The mood was a blend of curiosity and a creeping sense of disquiet, one that defied simple explanation. For Daniel, whose only concern at that moment was Lucky, the world beyond the clinic's safe confines remained a distant echo. But as the day advanced, even he could not completely ignore the shifting atmosphere around him, a tension that seemed to lurk behind every routine interaction, every ordinary moment. Still, his focus remained fixed on nurturing the fragile life that he had so fortuitously embraced. While he carefully arranged for Lucky's continued care, Daniel began to piece together a tentative plan. The next destination on their journey was the local animal shelter, a facility known for its commitment to rehabilitation and rehoming, nestled in an old brick building on a quiet street. At the animal shelter, the contrast was palpable. The facility, though modest and somewhat worn by time, radiated a sense of purpose and quiet resolve. Volunteers moved with deliberate care, their gentle smiles and attentive eyes a balm for the many creatures that found refuge within those walls. Here, the subdued hum of barking dogs, the rustle of paws on concrete, and the soft murmur of comforting words combined into a symphony of second chances. Lucky, still under Daniel's watchful eye, was introduced to this environment with the careful deliberation of someone acutely aware of the delicate balance between vulnerability and resilience. The shelter director, Ms. Harper, greeted them with an understanding nod as she examined the frail form of Lucky. In her experienced gaze, there was a deep empathy for every rescued soul that passed through her door, a gaze that had seen countless lives teeter on the edge of despair and then bloom anew with hope. As Ms. Harper spoke in a soothing, confident tone, she described the challenges and triumphs that defined the day-to-day operations of the shelter. There was no dramatization here, only an honest account of the highs and lows, the small victories and the occasional setbacks. In that moment, Daniel and Lucky became part of a larger tapestry woven from the threads of countless lives that had found solace amidst hardship. Yet, even within this reassuring haven, the unpredictable cadence of life had its own plans. A subtle tension wove itself into the routine of the shelter, a tension that hinted at hidden secrets and unexplained encounters. There were murmurings among the staff about unexpected disturbances on quiet nights, about the disconcerting feeling that sometimes permeated the corridors when the bustle of daytime activity faded into a heavier, more oppressive silence. Although no one could pinpoint an exact cause, these moments of inexplicable anxiety reminded everyone that even in places dedicated to healing, the shadows of the past and the echoes of untold stories might sometimes intrude. Throughout the day, Lucky's transformation was nothing short of miraculous. With every gentle touch, every kind word, the creature began to stir with a vigor that belied its former frailty. It was as if every breath was a rebellion against the hardships it had known, every blink a quiet assertion of the desire to live a life filled with light and love. In between the hum of caretakers tending to their duties and the soft rustle of bedding being changed, Lucky's eyes sparkled with tiny moments of lucid understanding. These fleeting intervals were like shards of hope scattered among the wreckage of despair, each one a promise that this long, arduous journey might yet lead to a joyful end. As the first hours of the new day unfolded, Daniel sat in the small, sunlit corner of the shelter, cradling Lucky in his arms and reflecting on the profound serendipity of it all. How often had fate revealed its intricate, mysterious tapestry in moments of undeniable heartbreak and inexplicable joy? With the morning light filtering through cracked windows and dust dancing in the air, he felt an overwhelming gratitude for being present in this fragile chapter of another being's life. And yet, a small voice in the back of his mind reminded him of the persistent undercurrent of strangeness that had begun to gather around the shelter, a reminder that even the simplest acts of love can sometimes be set against the backdrop of a world that is as unpredictable as it is beautiful. Outside, the city stirred awake. Along familiar sidewalks and under aging streetlights, commuters bustled to work with an air of determined routine. But as Daniel walked Lucky out of the shelter later that day, a subtle disquiet clung to the atmosphere, a sense that the world was not as neatly divided into moments of sorrow and solace as it appeared. In the reflection of a rain-washed storefront, Daniel saw fleeting images of a life that might have been, a life marred by unseen struggles and whispered regrets. And yet, in that reflection, there was also the promise of renewal, a commitment to keep fighting even when the odds seemed impossibly stacked. The story of Lucky and Daniel was a testament to the resilience of the spirit, a quiet refrain playing out in the underbelly of a city that was often harsh and unforgiving. Each heartbeat, each exhaled whisper of relief, was a silent pledge to never let the light be fully extinguished. Their journey was marked not only by the physical spaces they traversed, from dank alleyways to the warm confines of a caring clinic, to the bustling yet compassionate environment of the shelter, but also by the emotional landscapes that shifted like sand beneath their feet. Every location revealed fragments of a larger truth, that life, even in its most challenging moments, held within it the seeds of hope. In those early hours at the shelter, Lucky's progress was evident. As the hours passed and care routines continued, the dog began to show signs of newfound strength. Its eyes grew brighter, and its timid stance slowly gave way to a more confident posture. The transformation was as quiet as it was profound, an unspoken reminder that every soul, no matter how battered, could find its way back from the brink. Daniel watched this metamorphosis with a mix of awe and quiet determination, realizing that this fragile rescue was not merely about saving one dog, but about affirming the capacity for renewal in even the most hopeless of circumstances. While conversations at the shelter drifted between mundane updates and quiet expressions of wonder at this miraculous turnaround, an undercurrent of disquiet persisted. In a back corner of the building, a place where the hum of fluorescent lights met the silence of abandoned storerooms, an older volunteer paused, staring at a faded mural on the wall. The mural, depicting a vibrant landscape long past its prime, suddenly seemed to pulse with a strange intensity, as though it were a window to memories that were not entirely benign. For a brief moment, time itself seemed to fracture, leaving behind an echo of a world where joy and pain were inextricably intertwined. That fleeting glimpse of the inexplicable sent a shiver down the spine of those who witnessed it, a silent nod to the hidden mysteries that sometimes surfaced even in the most familiar settings. And so, with the day unfolding in a mixture of routine comfort and unforeseen intimations of a deeper, unsettling complexity, Lucky's journey, and indeed, the journey of every soul that had come under the care of compassionate strangers, continued to take shape. Daniel's heart, already brimming with quiet optimism, harbored a profound understanding of the delicate interplay between hope and uncertainty. It was a realization that every rescued life carried with it stories of struggle and survival, stories that demanded to be remembered, cherished, and nurtured. In the soft, golden light of late morning, as Daniel and Lucky prepared to leave the shelter and head towards the next chapter, a modest, welcoming home that had been prepared to serve as a haven for those in need, their eyes met across a room filled with the quiet clamor of busy volunteers and hopeful dreams. For Daniel, the future was an open, uncharted canvas painted in strokes of resilience and tenderness. For Lucky, the day held the promise of gentle recovery and the slow, deliberate rekindling of a spirit that had once been dimmed by neglect. The tender exchanges and subtle gestures among the shelter staff, punctuated by genuine smiles and heartfelt reassurances, served as a powerful reminder that even in a world where chaos and inexplicable events lurked in the margins, kindness could still prevail. As they walked out under the widening blue sky, the city around them hummed with a quiet energy, a determination to keep moving forward, even when the weight of sorrow threatened to overwhelm. Each step Daniel took with Lucky was a small act of rebellion against the bleakness that had once defined their past. It was a declaration that no matter how dire the circumstances, the promise of a better tomorrow was always within reach, waiting patiently to be embraced. In that stirring moment, as the echoes of the bustling street blended with the distant chirping of birds greeting the morning, the simple truth shone through: every life held within it the capacity for profound transformation. And though the journey ahead was bound to be filled with unforeseen challenges and moments of quiet anxiety, the unwavering bond between a compassionate human and a battered canine formed a bulwark against the tides of despair, a testament to the fact that even in the most uncertain of times, hope was a light that could never be completely extinguished. The morning after they left the shelter dawned with an intensity that was hard to ignore. As Daniel carefully drove along the quiet, rain-slicked streets with Lucky nestled in the back seat, the gentle hum of the engine seemed to harmonize with the soft, rhythmic panting of the newly revived canine. There was an unspoken promise in the way the rising sun cast its golden glow over the city, an unyielding vow of new beginnings, even when the past whispered bitter reminders of neglect and despair. At the threshold of a modest home tucked away in a peaceful, tree-lined neighborhood, Daniel felt a blend of anticipation and trepidation. This house, modest but exuding warmth in every crevice, was to be the sanctuary where Lucky would find complete healing. The front door creaked open onto a small living area filled with second-hand furniture steeped in memories of simpler times. Here, the air was redolent with the scent of fresh paint and the quiet promise of a clean slate. Natural light spilled through the windows, painting dust motes in the air with a quiet brilliance that belied the everyday hardships of the outside world. Inside, Daniel moved with a purposeful calm, setting down a worn suitcase and a bag filled with essentials. Every detail of the space, from the faded floral curtains to the smooth, scuffed floorboards, spoke of a humble life reborn from struggle similar to those Lucky had endured. With gentle, deliberate movements, he arranged a soft blanket by the fireplace and positioned a couple of small, comforting toys near a worn pet bed in a sunny corner. As he worked, he stole glances at Lucky, whose eyes shimmered with cautious hope. There was a fragile yet unmistakable bond forming between man and animal, a silent understanding that both had known the bitter taste of isolation and were now learning the art of trusting again. Even as Daniel busied himself with these small acts of care, the day gathered an undercurrent of unusual tension. Outside, the quiet neighborhood bore its usual signs of awakening life, neighbors greeting one another with friendly nods, the distant sound of a lawnmower starting up, but there was an odd hush that seemed to follow each echo of routine. Daniel sensed it as he moved through the rooms, a subtle tension that pressed gently at the edges of his consciousness. It was as if the familiar environment had been momentarily redefined by an undercurrent of anticipation or, perhaps, unspoken sorrow. That afternoon, while Lucky slept soundly on the cool tile floor near a sunlit window, Daniel decided to step outside for a brief walk. The gentle autumn breeze carried with it a mixture of fallen leaves and the bittersweet fragrance of distant rain. As he strolled through the neighborhood, his thoughts wandered back to the shelter and the murmur of disquiet that had stirred there. Something about that lingering uncertainty refused to be tamed by the calm of home, a subtle reminder that past shadows might reach into the present when least expected. At a nearby park, where the ordinary joy of children playing and elderly couples conversing over shared memories painted a picture of everyday normalcy, Daniel paused beside a weathered bench. The park, with its sprawling oak trees and meticulously trimmed hedges, seemed to breathe a life of its own, a life both serene and punctuated by tiny, inexplicable anomalies. He recalled the strange sensation at the shelter, the way a once dull painting had suddenly pulsed with an unaccountable energy. Now, seated beneath a canopy of rustling leaves, he could not help but wonder if the peculiar events of that day were isolated incidents or hints at something deeper, something simmering quietly beneath the surface of his own life. Lost in thought, Daniel's reflection was interrupted by the soft steps of an elderly neighbor, Mrs. Collins, who settled next to him with a knowing smile. Her presence was like a comforting whisper from a bygone era, one filled with both hardship and resilience. In a low, measured tone, she recounted how the neighborhood had seen its share of unusual episodes, flickering streetlights on overcast nights, brief, inexplicable silences, and moments when it seemed that time itself had taken a pause. There was no fear in her words, only a wistful acknowledgement of life's inherent unpredictability. Yet, as she spoke, Daniel felt a chill that belied the crisp autumn air, a tiny, persistent reminder that even the most charming of places could harbor secrets that stirred the soul. Upon returning home, Daniel found Lucky awake, pacing restlessly near the window. The dog's movement was both hesitant and urgent, as if stirred by memories too heavy to dismiss. In the quiet of the living room, the interplay of light and shadow took on a life of its own, dancing eerily across the worn rug and quiet furnishings. There was an almost cinematic quality to the moment, a fragile tableau where every glance and every sound resonated with meaning. Daniel knelt beside Lucky, his fingers stroking the animal's soft, slightly damp fur in a gesture that spoke of both comfort and unspoken concern. In that tender interaction, neither of them spoke, the silence was filled instead with the language of trust, a promise that they would face whatever lay ahead together. That evening, as twilight softened the edges of the day into a palette of deep blues and purples, the house transformed into a haven of subdued intimacy. Daniel prepared a simple meal in the cramped kitchen, each slice of bread and stir of soup imbued with quiet determination. Outside the window, the streetlights flickered on one by one, casting long, wavering shadows across the pavement. But inside, a gentle radiance prevailed, a stark contrast to the muted, shifting forms on the walls. While eating, Daniel's mind wandered back to the lingering question of how a creature so battered could find its way into a world that seemed indifferent to its pain. The image of Lucky's wide, searching eyes reminded him that healing was as much an emotional journey as it was a physical one. There was a raw, unfiltered quality to the connection they had forged, one that defied explanation and left an indelible mark on both their souls. It was a reminder that sometimes, amid the ceaseless march of everyday life, profound moments of beauty could arise from the most unanticipated corners. Later that night, when the house had finally succumbed to the embrace of sleep, Daniel lay awake in the dim quiet of his room, restless thoughts swirling like dark tendrils. He recalled fragments of a conversation with a friend, a fellow animal rescuer who had once spoken of inexplicable occurrences following a pet's rescue. The friend had mentioned a fleeting moment of uncanny clarity, as if the rescued animal carried with it the echoes of a life long overshadowed by neglect and silence. Daniel's thoughts trailed back to the shelter, to those indistinct murmurs that had resonated in quiet hallways and to the faint pulse of mystery that had gripped him earlier. He wondered if, somewhere in the expanse of the city's hidden narratives, Lucky's story was interwoven with echoes of forgotten lives and unresolved sorrows. The clock ticked steadily in the background, marking the hours of night with an almost hypnotic regularity. In those moments of solitude, Daniel found himself both comforted and unsettled by the mystery of life's unpredictable twists. The night seemed to offer up its own quiet wisdom, a lesson that every rescued life, every bond forged in the midst of turmoil, carried with it not only hope but a reminder of the transient nature of comfort. And as the moon rose high in a sky strewn with shimmering stars, he silently vowed that come morning he would do everything in his power to unravel the threads of uncertainty that still clung to their fragile sanctuary. When dawn finally broke through the darkness with a burst of pale, determined light, Daniel awoke to the sound of soft whimpers and the rustle of paws. Lucky stirred, eyes glistening with the reflection of a new day, a day that held its share of mystery and unspoken challenges. Together, they ventured into the gentle embrace of the early hours, the world outside now a canvas of possibility painted in delicate hues of gold and amber. The familiar rhythms of the neighborhood began to reassert themselves, yet there remained an ineffable quality to the air, a lingering echo of that earlier disquiet that neither time nor a new day could entirely dispel. In the quiet hours of the morning, as Daniel prepared to take Lucky for a walk in the nearby park, he paused to consider the journey ahead. Every step taken, every whispered hope shared between man and dog, was a defiant stand against the persistent echoes of isolation. The park, with its meandering trails and rustling leaves, soon revealed a side of itself that was at once invigorating and profoundly reflective. The path ahead wound through clusters of wildflowers and beneath arches of intertwined branches, and for a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath in an unspoken symphony of renewal. Yet, amid this serenity, there were subtle signs that not all was as tranquil as it appeared. A weathered signpost, its paint peeling and words barely legible, hinted at a time when the park had been a nexus for community gatherings and shared dreams. Now, tucked away in a shadowed corner, the relic seemed to murmur of forgotten tragedies and whispered regrets, a poignant contrast to the light-hearted chatter of morning walkers. Daniel's heart tightened as he wondered about the lives once intertwined with this hallowed ground, each with stories of joy, loss, and resilience. It was a reminder, as sharp as the brisk autumn air, that every sanctuary held both tender memories and raw, unresolved echoes of the past. As the day unfolded, Daniel and Lucky encountered gentle strangers and weathered souls whose eyes, like mirrors to their own hearts, reflected both gratitude and wistful longing. There was a street vendor who paused to offer them a smile and a warm cup of tea, her own life marked by quiet challenges that had forged a resilient spirit. With every shared glance and word of encouragement, Daniel felt the unspoken threads that bound them together, threads that wove a tapestry of hope amid the subtle, sometimes jarring, fluctuations of ordinary life. By the time the late afternoon sun began to soften its glow into a tender, amber haze, Daniel returned home with Lucky at his side, both of them quietly enriched by the day's gentle revelations. The quiet walk had not only deepened their bond but had also stirred within Daniel a renewed determination to honor every rescued life with compassion and unwavering resolve. Even as the familiar contours of his modest home welcomed them back with an embrace of stillness and fragile tranquility, the lingering sense of mystery remained, a soft, persistent whisper that echoed through each corner of his mind. That evening, as the wind outside picked up and carried with it the crisp scent of approaching twilight, Daniel sat by a small desk in the study, a single lamp casting warm shadows over scattered photographs and handwritten notes. Among them, he found an old family picture, a snapshot of a time when laughter and hope filled every moment, before life's trials had etched their silent scars on his heart. In that reflective moment, he was struck by how the act of caring for Lucky had become a mirror reflecting back the possibilities of his own renewal. The rescue was not a mere act of charity, it was an affirmation of life's frailty and strength intermingled in inexplicable ways, a journey where every tender moment shared between a compassionate soul and a battered creature was a testament to the boundless capacity for transformation. As night deepened, the subdued rhythm of the household seemed to settle into a gentle lullaby, broken occasionally by Lucky's soft whimpers and the distant hum of a city that never quite let go of its secrets. Despite the renewed sense of calm, Daniel's mind churned with questions. What were the origins of that persistent disquiet he had felt at the shelter and in the park? Had those moments been isolated flashes of leftover sorrow from the past, or was there an underlying current of unresolved tension that spanned not just his own experiences, but also the countless lives he had encountered during his rescue missions? While answers remained elusive, the questions themselves seemed to imbue him with an even stronger resolve to seek out, to listen, and to care with an intensity that defied the quiet despair of indifference. In the hushed silence of that night, as the stars blinked with distant, unyielding light, Daniel embraced the realization that every rescued creature, every shared moment of tenderness, echoed a larger, transformative truth. He resolved, with a quiet determination, to remain steadfast in his commitment to both Lucky and the myriad lives that silently sought redemption and care amid the chaos of an ever-shifting world. And as the night wore on, leaving behind the transient echoes of anxious dreams and lingering doubts, the soft promise of tomorrow rose anew, a promise that even the most fragile threads of hope, when nurtured with genuine compassion, could weave together a future as radiant and unpredictable as the first rays of dawn. In that unwavering commitment, the home transformed once more from a mere physical space into a living testament of resilience, a sanctuary that defied the ordinary with its quiet defiance, its ongoing narrative of renewal, and its silent challenge to the relentless pressures of a world that often preferred to overlook the small miracles hidden in everyday acts of kindness. The following events unfolded with a quiet urgency that belied the calm of the early afternoon. In the gentle hum of routine, a ripple of unexpected turmoil began to stir beneath the placid surface of everyday life. As Daniel returned home with Lucky in his arms after that reflective walk through the park, an almost imperceptible tension seemed to hang in the air, a murmur of an unforeseen turning point just on the horizon. Inside the modest living room, where warm amber lamplight pooled into inviting corners and soft echoes of laughter still resonated from past memories, a fragile record of the past caught Daniel's eye. Tucked behind a well-worn, leather armchair lay a faded photograph album, its edges softened by time. Curious yet cautious, he pulled it from its hiding place. Each yellowed page revealed moments of lives long before his own, a tapestry of candid smiles, halcyon gatherings, and faded celebrations. Amid these sepia-toned images, one photograph in particular stirred something in him. In that grainy snapshot, captured in a long-forgotten summer afternoon, was a young dog with eyes that glimmered with both mischief and melancholy. The resemblance to Lucky was startling, not in mere appearance, but in a soulful depth that bridged time and circumstance. Daniel's pulse quickened as he pondered the mysterious link between his rescued companion and the distant memory portrayed in that photograph. Had Lucky once belonged to someone, or was his presence in Daniel's life simply a serendipitous twist of fate? The more he looked, the more the image evoked not only wistful recollections of a bygone era, but also an inexplicable sense of urgency. As if guided by that unspoken connection, he resolved to seek clarity in the small, intricate details of the photograph. With gentle care, he traced delicate outlines with his fingertip over the names scrawled in faded ink along its border, names that hinted at another life and history interwoven with the present. Even as he examined these remnants from an earlier time, Lucky, ever patient, rested quietly at his feet. The dog's quiet demeanor belied an inner fortitude and a tacit comprehension of the fragile human moments unfolding around him. It was as if Lucky, in his own measured way, was offering silent support for whatever lay ahead. Together, man and animal formed a united front against an encroaching tide of uncertainty, a promise that neither fate nor forgetfulness would rob them of the hope they so desperately clung to. Over the next few days, Daniel immersed himself in small acts of investigation and reminiscence. He visited the neighborhood archive, a snug, sunlit room housed in an old building known as the Community Heritage Center. Between shelves of brittle newspapers and handwritten ledgers, he discovered fragments of local history detailing the lives of families, cherished pets, and even community legends that seemed almost mythic in their resonance. In one faded record, a name emerged: Eleanor Green. The brief entry described her as a compassionate soul who once owned a beloved dog known for its steadfast loyalty and soulful eyes, a description that resonated deeply with the image of Lucky. The discovery stirred Daniel's emotions like a sudden burst of color in an otherwise muted canvas, as if the threads of a forgotten story were weaving themselves into the present narrative. At the same time, a series of unsettling coincidences began to punctuate his quiet routine. When visiting the local grocer one balmy afternoon, Daniel overheard a whispered conversation between two elderly patrons discussing peculiar occurrences near the old community center. They spoke in hushed tones about inexplicable lights that danced at twilight, fleeting shadows that moved against the grain of the familiar, and soft murmurs that seemed to echo through corridors long abandoned. Their talk, while grounded in anecdote, carried an undercurrent of gravity, a tacit acknowledgement that the past and present often collide in ways that defy neat explanation. This merging of memory and mystery cast a new light on Lucky's presence. The dog was no longer just a rescued stray battling the odds, it now seemed to embody a legacy, an unspoken testament to the enduring power of affection and loyalty transcending the boundaries of time. With each new clue, Daniel's quest acquired a weightier purpose. His investigation was becoming not just a means to understand one life's journey, but a tribute to the legacy of compassionate souls whose stories had been nearly lost in the relentless current of modern existence. Amid these reflective endeavors, the gentle pulse of daily life continued. Neighborhoods bustled with morning markets and quiet tea conversations, and evenings brought families together under soft, golden lamplight. Yet in the stillness of each day, Daniel remained attuned to the undercurrents of subtle change. Once, as he was setting the table for a modest dinner, he felt the distinct sensation of being observed from an adjacent doorway. A fleeting glance revealed a middle-aged woman with eyes that shimmered with kindness and quiet sorrow, a look that seemed to invite him into a shared, unspoken narrative. Without exchanging a word, her presence confirmed what Daniel had begun to suspect, that the past, in all its tender intricacies, was inexorably linked to the present and that every life was part of a grand, interconnected story. The woman, who later introduced herself simply as Marianne, became an unexpected confidant. In long, meandering conversations over cups of herbal tea in Marianne's rustic kitchen, Daniel learned how she too had once experienced profound loss, and through those hardships, nurtured a resilient hope. Marianne recalled, with a soft fervor, how her childhood home had once been a sanctuary for stray animals, and how the echoes of those spirited moments had lingered in every corner of her life. Her words were laced with the bittersweet tones of memory and accentuated by delicate metaphors that painted an evocative picture of faded summers and lost promises. In Marianne's gentle recounting, Daniel found a mirror reflecting the uncertainties he harbored as well as the quiet courage that urged him onward. Every interaction deepened his resolve to piece together the scattered fragments of Eleanor Green's past and, by extension, the potential origins of Lucky's mysterious resemblance to that long-forgotten friend. With Marianne's supportive counsel and the wealth of archival clues slowly accumulating, Daniel embarked on a series of careful inquiries. He revisited the community center to sift through weathered ledgers, organized local records, and even reached out to a few aged residents who had witnessed the quiet laughter and sorrow of days gone by. Each conversation was a blend of gentle reminiscence and cautious revelation, a tapestry of voices that recalled, in their soft murmurs, a time when trust and affection bound people together in the face of life's inevitable struggles. At the same time, Lucky's progress continued in quiet, remarkable spurts. The dog, whose once brittle frame had begun to strengthen, now met each day with cautious vigor. His playful glances and moments of sudden, joyful energy filled the house with vibrant reminders that every moment was a delicate balancing act between the bitter and the sweet. In a touching display of newfound resilience, Lucky would sometimes dash exuberantly across the yard, his coat catching the light in flashes of iridescence that spoke of a rebirth both physical and emotional. In these simple acts, Daniel saw the embodiment of hope, a vivid, living metaphor for the tender and relentless capacity for renewal that wove through every aspect of life. Yet, as days blended into one another, hints of a broader, more disquieting reality began to trickle into Daniel's contemplative world. One crisp evening, as the amber glow of sunset spilled over the quiet street outside, Daniel discovered a small, neatly folded envelope slipped under his door. Its paper was worn and embossed with a faded insignia, one that mirrored the markings found on the photograph album he had discovered earlier. With trembling hands, he carefully unfolded the letter. The message within was brief, written in careful, flowing script that exuded both urgency and tenderness. It spoke of a legacy left unfulfilled, of a promise made long ago to protect the vulnerable and to honor the memory of a cherished companion whose bond transcended time. The letter urged him to seek out further truths hidden in plain sight, to explore the forgotten corners of his community where echoes of lost dreams might still be found. This unexpected communication sent a tremor of both excitement and apprehension through Daniel's heart. It was as if the past had reached out in a quiet, determined way, an invitation to embrace the mystery that permeated every gesture, every shared glance among the inhabitants of this seemingly ordinary place. In the pale light of that evening, as the last vestiges of daylight gave way to the solemn quiet of night, Daniel felt a profound kinship with those who had come before him, a bond forged in quiet moments of introspection and the silent determination to believe in better tomorrows. The days that followed brought a surge of determination. With Marianne's gentle encouragement and the cryptic letter as both beacon and challenge, Daniel set out on a journey to piece together the fragments of the past, all the while nurturing the hopeful spark that Lucky had so resolutely ignited. Every step, every interaction, felt charged with significance, a reminder that even the most unassuming lives carried within them the potential for monumental change. In the heart of that quaint neighborhood, where tradition and transformation intermingled, his quest evolved into a mission, one that sought not only to unravel a mystery, but to honor a legacy built on compassion, resilience, and an enduring commitment to giving second chances. As twilight again draped the neighborhood in its soft, mysterious cloak, the tapestry of clues and memories wove itself into a complex narrative, the story of intergenerational bonds, of unforeseen meetings and long-forgotten promises. Standing on the threshold of an unfolding mystery, Daniel felt the weight of the past converge with the luminous possibilities of the future. In that delicate balance lay the essence of everything he had come to understand, that every life, whether human or animal, was a repository of stories, some bitter and some sweet, all intermingled in an endless dance of fragile hope and determined resilience. And so, as the night deepened and the city murmured its quiet secrets beneath a vault of shimmering stars, Daniel resolved to follow the subtle threads linking memory to the present, embracing both the warmth of kind souls like Marianne and the profound symbolism carried by a rescued dog whose gentle spirit had already transformed his world. Each step was imbued with meaning, a promise that even the most intricate mysteries of the past could lead to unforeseen moments of beauty, redemption, and healing. In that quiet determination, the home became not only a sanctuary for Lucky, but also a beacon for those willing to listen to the silent echoes of lives once entwined and now reaching out across the vast tapestry of time. Every soft murmur from the shadows, every unexpected letter slipping under the door, carried the whispered assurance that hope could spark a luminous fire in the darkest of moments. And together, Daniel and Lucky advanced, step by tentative step, toward a future where the legacy of old promises would be renewed, and the bonds of compassion would light the way forward into a new dawn. Daniel's resolve deepened as dawn ushered in an unyielding clarity. The enigmatic letter had become a compass, urging him forward into a labyrinth of memories that transcended ordinary recollection. With Lucky padded faithfully at his side, he returned to the Community Heritage Center, a modest brick building resonating with echoes of decades past. Inside, narrow corridors lined with aging photographs and brittle documents beckoned him to explore further. The hushed voices of time seemed to murmur from every shadow as Daniel carefully scanned through records and ledgers, following the fragile thread that Eleanor Green's name had spun into a web of untold stories. In a small archive room set apart from the rest of the center, Daniel discovered a weathered journal tucked behind a stack of forgotten newspapers. Its pages, yellowed by time and delicate as the wings of a long-vanished butterfly, chronicled the day-to-day life of Eleanor, a compassionate woman whose heart had once embraced not only stray animals but also the sorrow and beauty of a community yearning for hope. The entries painted a portrait of a time when laughter mingled with tears on sunlit porches and every small kindness was celebrated as a triumph over hardship. Yet, interspersed between joyful recollections were cryptic lines hinting at loss, regret, and secrets long obscured by the relentless march of years. Daniel's fingers traced the fine, looping script as he absorbed Eleanor's reflections. He learned of her deep bond with a loyal canine companion, described in tender detail, a dog whose soulful eyes and unwavering loyalty had captured her heart and, in doing so, illuminated a path through the darkest hours of her life. The journal recounted long nights spent under the weight of sorrow and quiet moments of fierce determination to protect those she loved, even as time conspired to erase every trace of the past. A particular entry, written on a stormy night filled with flickering candlelight, described a sudden, unsettling occurrence, the unmistakable sensation of being watched by unseen presences, as if the very walls of her home were privy to secrets too delicate to voice aloud. The strange energy that had permeated Eleanor's recollections resonated deeply with Daniel. He felt an uncanny connection between the vivid memories of the past and the subtle, inexplicable sensations that had begun to stir in his own life. Outside the center's tall, arched windows, the city continued its quiet rhythm, yet here inside, time felt pliable, as though every whispered secret was waiting patiently to be rediscovered. Lucky, sensing the shift in atmosphere, sat attentively by Daniel's feet, his gentle eyes mirroring an unspoken understanding that they were on the verge of something momentous. Leaving the archive with a handful of carefully selected pages and the gentle weight of Eleanor's story in his heart, Daniel stepped back into the bustling cadence of daily life. The streets were awash with the muted light of an overcast day, and the voices of passers-by blended into a distant hum, an everyday symphony that now carried an undercurrent of mystery. As he navigated the familiar sidewalks, every step felt deliberate, as if he were retracing a path that had been secretly mapped by the hands of fate. Later that afternoon, while the soft golden hues of twilight began to cloak the city, Daniel sought answers from an unexpected source, a retired librarian whose memory was as vast as the shelves that lined her once sacred domain. In a quiet, narrow room filled with the musky scent of ancient paper and whispered confidences, Mrs. Beecham welcomed Daniel with a knowing smile. Over steaming cups of herbal tea, she listened intently as he recounted the fragments of Eleanor's journal and the uncanny similarities between the past and the present. Her eyes, twinkling with both mischief and melancholy, lit up with recollection as she recalled Eleanor's tireless efforts at establishing a community haven for both people and animals alike. There was an undeniable magic in her dedication, Mrs. Beecham said softly, her voice measured and warm. I remember how the library would fill with the soft sounds of laughter and the rustle of pages whenever Eleanor was near. It was as if she had the rare ability to breathe life into every corner of this old building, much like your Lucky, who seems to carry a spark of that same, enduring spirit. As Daniel absorbed her words, he sensed that the layers of mystery were slowly peeling away, revealing a tapestry woven with threads of shared loss and relentless hope. Mrs. Beecham discreetly retrieved a slender file from beneath a row of ancient tomes, a compilation of community letters, newspaper clippings, and even a few faded photographs that depicted Eleanor in her element, smiling amid a chaotic but loving family of rescued animals, her eyes alight with promise even against the hardships of her time. Among these relics was a small, handwritten note that made his heart skip a beat, a reference to a hidden gathering, a final meeting where Eleanor had spoken of her last promise, a commitment to preserve every fragment of hope, no matter how faint. Deeply moved and driven by an almost magnetic pull toward uncovering every nuance of this secret legacy, Daniel spent the night poring over his notes and the collected pieces of history. In the solitude of his modest home, illuminated only by a solitary desk lamp that cast dancing shadows upon the walls, he felt the past converge with the present. The soft murmur of Lucky's steady breathing was a constant reassurance, a living reminder that amid life's uncertainty, some bonds were unbreakable. Every page turned and every memory resurrected further solidified the notion that the threads of destiny were far more intricate and mysterious than he had ever imagined. Even as sleep beckoned, Daniel's mind raced with an array of questions. What exactly was Eleanor's last promise? How did her life's work and secret gatherings connect to the present-day signs of inexplicable phenomena that had begun to punctuate his own life? And why did Lucky, the gentle creature who had once been so frail, now exude an air of both quiet resilience and otherworldly familiarity? There was a compelling urgency in the air, a sense that the answers lay hidden in plain sight, waiting for a soul brave enough to seek them out. Throughout the restless hours of the night, as the wind softly caressed the window panes and the city slumbered under a blanket of stars, Daniel's dreams became vivid tapestries of overlapping realities. In these dreams, echoes of Eleanor's laughter and the silent promises spoken in darkened corridors intertwined with the tender presence of Lucky, guiding him toward revelations that transcended time. It was as if every slumbering moment held the possibility of awakening not only memories, but also a profound understanding that the past was an inseparable part of every new beginning. With the first tender light of morning, Daniel awoke with renewed determination and a mind teeming with possibility. He knew that his journey was far from over. The delicate balance between what was known and what remained hidden was shifting, and every clue gleaned from Eleanor's remnants and the whispers shared by those who had known her was a stepping stone toward a much larger truth. As he prepared to venture out once more into the unfolding tapestry of his community, armed with the silent wisdom of the past and the unyielding companionship of Lucky, he vowed to honor every whispered promise, every lingering secret that had been entrusted to him. Stepping into the cool embrace of the new day, Daniel felt that the quiet pulse of the city had grown more deliberate, as if it were keeping time with the hidden cadence of long-forgotten memories. Every familiar landmark, a venerable oak tree in the park, the rustic corner cafe, even the modest storefronts with their faded signs, seemed to hold an untold chapter of a larger, intricate story. In that moment, among the soft murmur of awakening neighbors and the tender play of morning light, Daniel understood that hope was not simply the absence of despair, but the courageous act of remembering that every soul carried within it a fragment of something eternal. And so, beneath a sky brushed with the gentle pinks and golds of early morning, Daniel and Lucky set forth once again. Their journey, steeped in the quiet revelations of community, memory, and whispered legacies, pressed onward, each step a testament to the truth that even in the unassuming corners of everyday life, the extraordinary was patiently waiting to be rediscovered. As the days folded into a gentle cascade of twilight and dawn, the threads of the past and present wove themselves into a tapestry of illuminated mystery and undeniable hope. In this quiet culmination, Daniel found himself drawn to a small, ivy-draped community garden where every blossom whispered stories of resilience. It was here, among tender green shoots pushing up through the rich soil, that the final echoes of Eleanor's legacy revealed themselves. The garden, a humble yet vibrant sanctuary where nature reclaimed forgotten corners, served as a living memorial to every caring soul who dared to believe in second chances. In the soft rustle of leaves and the murmurs of the wind, Daniel recalled the letter's haunting words and the secrets hinted at in Eleanor's journal. Each memory, the fleeting laughter from a long-ago gathering, the bittersweet notes in faded photographs, the quiet revelations shared by Mrs. Beecham and Marianne, converged into a single luminous truth that compassion and commitment could transform even the most fragile existence. Lucky, now more vigorous with each passing moment, trotted by his side as if to affirm that every hardship weathered could be transmuted into quiet strength. The community garden became a venue for a final testament. A discreet plaque embedded in one corner bore Eleanor's name alongside a simple yet powerful inscription, "In every small act of kindness lives an undying promise." Standing before this silent promise, Daniel felt the bittersweet convergence of all the unanswered questions that had haunted him. The mystery of Eleanor's last promise was not merely a cryptic challenge, but a call to nurture what had been left behind, a call to preserve love and hope wherever they could be found, even in the most unassuming spaces of everyday life. In that moment of introspection, a soft light played upon Lucky's gentle eyes and the scent of freshly watered blossoms filled the air. Daniel understood that the legacy was complete. The quiet investigation that had begun on a rain-soaked night, the careful unraveling of forgotten letters and fragile journal pages, and the heartfelt exchanges with kindred spirits had all led to this singular epiphany, that hope is seeded deep within every act of care, every measured step forward, and every shared smile in the face of adversity. The garden, with its vivid bursts of color and the steady pulse of life beneath the surface, became a metaphor for renewal, a testament to how even lives bruised by neglect can blossom into something extraordinary when nurtured by genuine compassion. As Daniel gently caressed Lucky's fur, he whispered a promise that resonated with the quiet strength of the community itself, that every soul, whether human or animal, deserved the chance to rediscover the beauty in every new morning. In the lingering glow of the fading afternoon, when the sun dipped low and bathed the garden in a soft, amber radiance, Daniel felt an overwhelming sense of closure. The mysteries that once clouded his mind, the enigmatic notes from Eleanor, the silent stories of the archival records, and the subtle, almost imperceptible whispers of the past, melded seamlessly with the vivid tapestry of the present. Now, it was clear that the journey was not about solving an isolated puzzle, but about embracing an enduring belief that love, resilience, and quiet acts of kindness have the power to bridge the divide between sorrow and redemption. As evening finally settled over the community garden, Daniel and Lucky lingered in serene silence, their hearts quietly attuned to the unspoken harmonies of life. The small sanctuary of nature stood as an eternal promise that every challenge met with care and every hardship softened by compassion would lead, inexorably, to a brighter tomorrow. And in that gentle darkness, amid the tender shadows of memories and the soft glow of hope, the spirit of renewal continued to whisper, a timeless affirmation that even in our most uncertain moments, every ending holds the seed of a joyful, unexpected new beginning.